Hello, this is Gerald Johan van Maas. In this video I will compare another Chinese word with the understandings that I have developed based upon the sound meanings. And this word, Tsai, I thought immediately, oh, I can recognize where it's going in letters foundations, and the meanings can be derived from it quite quickly. And I will tell you how I recognize these things, because generally, actually, all the signs and all the characters should actually provoke the right associations a little bit. They go towards a certain direction. It's not just recognizing symbols that you know. It's the whole set of associations, also in an abstract sense, and of course the associations that you know already that build up together and brings you to the right position of thought of what it is expressing. And that's something that I recognized here from the sounds. And I will tell you how, and it could also build up further from the letters that I already explained before, how this is done. Because Chinese script, you know, of course, it's also a way to recognize the symbols themselves. So we can sometimes already predict its meaning somewhat by recognizing certain characters. Like you have this character of the earth there already, which is very clearly an association that is even recognizable for a Western person who checks this out. So in a matter of seconds I already said, okay, I recognize it. And that is actually what it should do. In a matter of seconds I have the couple of associations and I bring together the combinations. That's the same with Roman letters. You have these combinations and you have a set of letters that hang together and they bring you to a certain point of associations. We will do that unconsciously, and they will probably, people who use these characters will also do that unconsciously, or learn it first by heart and then have an association there in its place. But it could be different. It could be much deeper into what it really is directing. And that's what I'm going to say today, how I recognize this. What I recognized immediately is a sort of comparison with the foundation of this symbol that I have there in the blue. An association of that is the reference point of an application, like we have with ta, that you say, okay, I start from here, I have something that I can use, I start from here. Nevertheless, this symbol is not the same. It is breached in parts. It's almost like it's broken apart in parts. And also on the background you have this time frame that I always connect, the time frame, which is E, which is also 1. So all the characters of the Chinese script are in a time frame, and 1 is the first period. So it's a period. I have a period. I have something that exists as 1 that I can use. It's the E. So I recognize that. And you recognize, of course, also the symbol for earth or two. Yeah, if I mix the languages, I don't always pronounce it 100% correct. And grounding, the grounding part, let's say, comes to it that actually the order that I recognized the things were not even the order that is originally meant, because the order of writing matters also. The order of writing actually tells you also in which order you have your focus. The same way, just like the letters, the Roman letters are in a certain order, your order has to go from the first letter to the last letter, and that's the way how they hang together. So the first one is the E. That's your dependency. The dependency is then on the time frame at the background. Then define the application, which is in this last symbol. So that how what do we have already? So we have actually when something is starting from time, it's more about being, about how to be, how things are behaving at a place with a certain grounding. This grounding is also accidentally, this plus is also used for 10, the fullness, the complete cycle, and the underlying is the one, dependent on one. The full cycle is depending on the grounding, the grounding here in this case, on the 0 point actually as well. So what do I have as well with the sounds? I have the sounds of Tsai, which is from the T, or the position of positioning at a place, with the Z, if I can call it a Z, it is going inwardly, and the inwardly Z is about behavior. How do I have to behave? So it's again to be at a place in time with a certain behavior to make a grounding here. That's how I recognize what is going on. So we are dependent via the Z in time at a place to make our grounding. That's how I see it. So it is about a kind of behavior. How is it translated? Yeah, this is a kind of translation is being at. So yeah, I have here a bit more details of association. So it's in there, it's at there, it remains, it dwells, it's live there. It belongs to some organization. It belongs. It is located somewhere. It depends somewhere. It's during this period in which something is happening. It's aboard, like in a firm it could be as well. It's this grounding in time and place at the same time with some kind of behavior that is expected to be. You are there at a place and during a certain time within that frame with a certain grounding. That's how I see that. And if I compare it to the sound in form, if I put it into sounds, it is a bit depending, like how is it pronounced? Is it like more S? Is it more Z? Or is it really going towards Z? The significations of letters with S or Z are somewhat different. The S is really at the outside and it's going outside. It's like a behaviorism, a general sense of behaviorisms that are that surround us. Why the Z is really going towards a certain situation. With the sound that is produced here, we go to a certain situation. It focuses. It's going towards it, and so it is more like a Z association and an S association. It's going towards the inner setting of how these things behave. That's how I sensed the sounds and forms together. Now you could of course say, like, isn't this a bit too far-edged? Because it's not really intended that way. So you see certain things, okay, they seems to make some sort of sense. But why do you do so? Why is it doing so? And is this originally intended? So could this be maybe already an over-analyzing? I'm not analyzing it. That's the way I look at things, and I see these things, and I see how they are built up from underneath and how they hang together. And so far, the hanging together, how I see it, it's only builds up. I didn't have to change much by simply describing what is there from the bottom up to what it is associating. I have the same thing in Roman letters, and the basics for that, why I do that, is actually when I was 7 years old. I was in the classroom of my father, who was teaching in the first class, or the lower class for people who was 7 years old. He was there were boards, and there were images of letters and what they presented, with some extra images to it to describe it. And I found out that these were letters, and by analyzing them a little bit, I came a bit quicker to figure out what letters were presented on the board. So I was already learning letters that nobody knew at that time, and it always it always stayed with me. Only years later I said, okay, but this way of thinking, that I see how it is built up, it makes sense. And for instance, when I have the A, when I say that it is grounded on a space, and that this is about the estimation, so we have this room in which the waves can be, there is an estimation of to where the A exists, is a whole way of thinking how things build up from A to Z. And you can of course say, yeah, but is this really intended? At this moment, how we are thinking, how we are acting by associating directly upon recognition of things in space, these letters fit well. This is our structure, and when I discovered that, it means that it was discovered from the underlying structure, not from the letter itself, but from the underlying structure. And then I saw, oh, it matches. Oh, the B matches too, the C matches too, the D matches too. All these letters matched with the underlying structure. Once you noticed this, okay, it took a while, but I noticed this underlying structure, and then all the letters fit onto it. And that will be the same with the Chinese, on a different structure. So yeah, so that's the way I see A, for instance, and it helps me to understand it, and it helps me also to know how we think with the letter A, how we start from the letter A, how it is an estimation, so that we make mistakes, and how do we learn these mistakes. I can derive all these things from there. And you could say, of course, to me, yeah, but the A, that was originally an ox. It was a different association. It was not the original intention, that like what you are doing there. But the intentions from recognizing the A, of being a starting point and trying to estimate from there onwards into a structure, a bigger structure, in a way, these ideas were exactly the same. The forms looked differently before. Why? Because they were more associated, not in the geometrical immediate association of where we are at this moment. So we made it more abstract, more clear, more real, actually, from what we can recognize. In those days, they used the starting point as a reference in the sky. So they had to start from the stars, and you had to recognize the stars. Where is the starting point in the sky? So that's, of course, why we needed a slightly different shape for the letter. But it's the same thing. It is exactly the same thing. So maybe it was not intended like that, but in the same way it was intended as an estimation towards the sky, over a certain length, and that's the same thing. But the only thing what is different is that letter was used in the sky. Now we can use it in our local space. That's the difference. Same thing with the Chinese. What I recognize today is based upon that what we can recognize today. We no longer need the oracle bones. We no longer need the great seals, the small one and not the big one. These can help us to see the origins and where the things come from, and how they originally expressed the things immediately in the predictions immediately in the real world directions and in the intercommunications with that world. Now we see the things more abstract, and also the Chinese script became more abstract, just exactly in the same way as the Roman script became more exact. But the foundation in which they also always found the balance between the things, and they even increased this over the years, this balance of the yin and yang, let's say, is now everywhere. It wasn't so clear in the oracle bone period that it was like that. They were dependent on different periods and in different associations, but nowadays they do. And when I build up these things like I did today, it makes sense to me. I build it up from the previous letters. I build them up from ta. I build them up from the time frame, and it's best to remember them and to recognize them. Oh yeah, here's the time frame. Okay, here's the foundation. Okay, here it goes to that symbol. It goes very quickly, but it's helpful to remember these tools. And so this was just an example of, yeah, I can go towards a strange way of thinking maybe for some, but it makes sense once you start to build up and recognize not just the old characters, but also the abstractions of the characters. Oh yeah, I recognize a starting point. Oh yes, I recognize a time frame. Oh yes, I recognize a spatial reference. I recognize a dependency. I hear with the tone a dependency. People don't think about these things, but when you recognize, they have more elements to recognize all these things together. And that was my point for today. Thanks again for watching. Bye.